friends. So I was planning to be all cool and, do the whole silent video thing for a lot of my channel from now on, but that's just not going to happen because I just really like to talk. So in this video, I wanted to talk about the idea of summer and just whether you're one of my magically inclined friends or if you are just looking for a way to kind of focus on something like dedication, energy, blossoming confidence this summer. As I mentioned in my last video, summer is not my jam. It is not my favorite season. It is probably my least favorite season. I live in a very hot climate, very humid climate. We have tropical, devastating storms. It's just not my favorite. So I'm really trying this year to embrace the heat, embrace the energy of this season, and in doing that, I wanted to create just a little sun talisman for the solstice that just happened, and I made this on the solstice to kind of just pull that energy in from the cosmos, or just commemorate it if you are not of the naturally inclined. So what I'm doing right now is using some gold leafing liquid, and I'll link that supplies as usual below, on some unbleached cotton muslin, making 2 little round circles. And this is just, and I'm making myself a little template right here for creating my sewing line. I promised I would have a sewing video this week, and I followed through with that. This fabric is easy to work with. This thread is not. It is a very difficult metallic thread to embroider with, and it is kind of on the expensive side when it comes to embroidery thread because it has that metallic line in it. However, it is just beautiful. I love the finished result of it. You have to be very, very patient working with it, and that was something I wanted to focus on with this project, was just being in the present, focusing, going slowly on what I was working on. I'm just using a simple back stitch, and it really was kind of a meditative process. And you can use a mantra if you're trying to focus your intention on something in creating this little charm talisman for yourself. I wanted to create this to put on my little shelves that I have in my living room parlor, just to kind of commemorate this time of the year that I usually have a difficult time with, and I'm really enjoying it so far. This fabric, like I said, it's really easy to work with normally. Having the dried gilding liquid made it a little more difficult to work with, and the embroidery thread is also kind of difficult, but it was well worth the effort. And as you can see, I have an enormous cabbage patch of scraps, and I'm going to credit Bernadette Banner with that most beautiful nomenclature when it comes to my scraps. Cabbage is apparently the Victorian name for scrap fabric, and I will forever call it that because it sounds so much prettier than scraps. And then when you cut it down like I'm doing just now to make a filling that's eco-friendly, and also it's kind of pretty in there, because you just can't bear to, if you're a sewist, you can't bear to get rid of your scraps. You can't bear to get rid of those beautiful little pieces of the fabric you so lovingly chose and bought. And she calls it coleslaw, and I also love that. I'm gonna take a little lunch break. Cucumbers, arugula, and garlic chives from my garden. And as you'll notice on my channel, I'm starting to have a little bit more gardening and pastoral things, video footage added to my sewing. I think it's just a nice little mental break. I go out in my garden multiple times a day. It's just a really nice boost for me. That is part of my wannabe cottage life that I am trying to live for myself. So going back to stitching, I'm sorry I tried to unboring this for you. It is, I know that hand stitching, I don't know if it's very interesting to watch. I am a weird person who really enjoys watching hand stitching of people when it's cut and it is, people are talking about what they're doing. So I hope you enjoy that footage, and it's not too much. But you'll just need to stitch along where you made your secondary circle, and then fill with your coleslaw that you made, or you can use wool if you have that. You can use a number of other things for filling. Before I added the wool, or before I added my filling, I went ahead and used a few dried rosemary sticks. These all came from my garden, and I really love burning them, kind of like in a place of incense. They smell really, really good. And rosemary is also kind of just this source of protection and kind of like loving motherly strength, and or that's what it represents for me, remembrance, things like that. So I wanted to make the spokes of my little decorative sun out of rosemary, but you could also use wire and gild that with alcohol ink. You could gild it with just plain gilding liquid. You could use it like you used on the fabric. You could use gold leaf that I'm going to show you later. It's just it's whatever is up to you. I wanted my little sun wheel to look a little folksy and have kind of this folksy artistic flair to it. So adding the coleslaw here just to give it a little bit of fluff, and make sure your little spokes try to stay in line as much as you can, whatever you made them out of. And I also went ahead and added a few herbs to mine, kind of like a scented sachet. And the scent does, if you hold it up to your nose, it's very light. But more, I wanted to, when I looked at this sun wheel on my shelves in my parlor every day, I wanted to just remember the things that were in it and kind of like draw on the memories of those things. These are rose petals I've dried from my garden, just to kind of represent, I want to remember love and self-care throughout the summer season, because it's a difficult season for me. These are calendula or calendula, however you say it with your accent, that are very healing. They're very, very tough kind of little flowers. They're one of the first spring flowers that come up in my garden, and they're very healing. I put them in all of the herbal salves I make. This is frankincense. It's good for, if you are biblically inclined, it's good for protection. It's also good for purification, and it also smells very good. This is sweet mint. It has taken over my garden completely. All of these herbs have been dried. Make sure you don't put any wet herbs in your sachet. It might mold in there, and you don't want that. But mint is good for things like prosperity and drawing, just protection for travel, which a lot of people do in the summer, things like that to yourself. So I just wanted those major things to be on my mind every time I looked at this cute little sun charm on my desk. And you'll want to just go ahead and close that with the continued back stitch, and then we'll get to the gilding in just a little bit. As you can see, it is important to backstitch this charm. Not only is it good to think about what you want to represent in this little talisman for yourself, but also to stick any kind of spokes like rosemary or maybe oak sticks or wire or anything like that to between the larger back stitches you do by hand. Now I wanted to add, you could leave it like this, but I wanted to add an extra oomph to kind of my like Celtic heritage and just the things I've been studying lately. I'm a big history buff, and I've really been kind of studying the ancient Celtic region, and a symbol that is very important to that region is called the Triskel, And I'm saying that with my very southern / French influence accent. I know it's pronounced differently in different regions, but it represents a lot of things. Scholars really aren't quite sure exactly what it represents, but it's seen all through Celtic history and Celtic symbolism. It's hypothesized to represent earth, sea, and sky, or perhaps the three realms of existence. In whatever case, the number 3 is very important to many cultures, and I just find it a really, really beautiful symbol. When I see it, I think of the sun, I think of the elements, and I find it really beautiful. And this is just it's imitation gold leaf that I will link down below. It works very well. Traditional, like real gold leaf, is quite expensive, and so I went with imitation. And while that dries, I just wanted to show you my very first tomato. It's a San Marzano tomato in my garden. It took forever for them to start ripening. Forever. It took weeks. They were this size, and then all of a sudden they're all starting to ripen, and I'm so very excited. They're perfect with just a little bit of salt and goat cheese, and I love it. Once your gilding is dry, once your gold leaf underpinning is dry, I used Mod Podge for mine. You could use Elmer's glue or whatever you are used to working with, whatever adhesive you have on hand. Just use a dry paintbrush to knock the unadhered pieces loose, and you'll have any kind of symbol that you wanted to use on your little sun. And like I said, I wanted mine to be very folksy and very like old school magical, and so this is it on my little parlor shelf. And for the solstice, I just lit a candle under it and meditated on the things that I kind of wanted to focus on for this season of heat and summer and energy. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, so it really helps the channel. Otherwise, I really hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.